Well, my dear Bulaws and Barrows, welcome back to Crown's Crypto Cave. Plenty to talk about today as we get the new weekly and a new week of potentially even opportunities as Bitcoin once again sets up for a little bit of short-term action. Traditional markets going on as well, and actually plenty to talk about right there. So with that in mind, I'd like to wish you the best, and the happiest. And also, if you still want to join the Discord community, of course, it's 100% free. You're 100% welcome to do such things. However, I will point you in the direction of a very helpful video that is going to be the channel video here. If you subscribe to the channel, and then you just go to the channel homepage, wherever that is, then it's the video that automatically plays, and it'll explain in detail what to do because, well, apparently, apparently it can be a little bit more difficult for some people out there, but fair enough. I do understand the early morning struggles as I'm going through a little bit myself right now, if you can't tell. I feel like I didn't get enough sleep last night. Anyways, over here on the Crown Chain application, what you found at app.crownchain.net, what do we see? We do see a couple interesting things right here. Bitcoin dominance now heading back up another 0.5%, all the way back up almost to 65%. Down from over the weekend while Bitcoin was ranging, as you would expect. Bitcoin open interest also kind of holding in that $2.6.5 billion marker as well. Still kind of oscillating between that $2.5 billion marker and that $8.5 billion marker that we saw last week. We still haven't really seen that correlated with an actual price action range, but if I was to kind of put a preliminary idea on it, that's what it would be. Just kind of looking at the charts right now. And Fear and Greed Index also holding a 90 value from yesterday to today as well. Into the data tab we go, and where are these canaries in the coal mine? Only Bear Jesus knows this one, actually. Anyways, looking at the funding rates over here, still everyone hanging out around 0.01%. FTX kind of the odd man out, but coming down a little bit as well. We saw it just around 0.1% yesterday and the day before that. Now down around 0.07%. Still, neither of those were like in the critical area to begin with, so it was more or less a warning signal, but not a full-on signal. And realistically, I want to see all these exchanges get up there, not just one. So with that in mind, I don't really see anything that's out of the ordinary except that we have a bad data feed over here, which you probably need to fix. More info on it. But with that in mind, I think it's best to go into the price action charts themselves, and we'll start it off actually with the secondary charts today with the big bad news that's really going to drive biases within this week. And looking at the weekly closure right here, a very clear and obvious close right above the top side Trojan band once again, and I would be looking for at the very least a retest of our prior highs on this run, and potentially even new highs. In fact, I mean, typically speaking, that would be the bias on it. So with that in mind, still have a nice eye on that upper $17,000 region. Of which we've been denoting on the lower term timeframes, but I believe we're also closing maybe a 3-day today as well. Is this true? Yes, it is true. Okay, so the next piece of price action that I really want to see in order to promote this, look for this this rally to continue onwards and upwards here, and this is probably gonna be one of the more important focuses on a video like this, is I want to see the 3-day closure above that topside Trojan band once again. As long as those two conditions are met, which we already saw the weekly meet that condition as of last night, so it's fresh for another week. Then I want to see the 3-day kind of lead up with it, and I'm essentially bullish as long as that is met for more long-term moves. So with that in mind, we'll go back down into low-term timeframes right in over here, or actually go over to our low-term timeframe chart over here. There we go. And looking at the 4-hour right now, actually looking like it does want to pop back up the corner. We did say yesterday a move back up to about 16,200 was likely. I believe we got that somewhere right around, we got that right around here. Not exactly 16,200, or I said 16,002 to 16,003. I still think 16,003 is likely on the way. 16,002 was obviously hit yesterday, or I guess we got 16,750. Fair enough, close enough in my opinion. But looking at it right now, I would be looking for this to pop back up in any sort of a move above 16,175, the high of yesterday. I'd actually extend that move not to just 16,3, it'd be more like 16,350 to maybe even 16,4. And looking at it right here, what do we see? We do see 4-hour Stokes popping back up, rejection the bearish control zone. Nice, so momentum is looking nice and northwards. We do see 4-hour RSI finally putting in that low that we spoke about yesterday, actually going to come alongside some hidden bullish divergence here too. And this is the signature that we were looking for, right? We were looking for a little bit of sideways and down over the weekend. We got that, and if it does want to pop back up, which is looking like it does, I'd be looking for that to happen early this week, perhaps even today. In fact, it's looking like it will give a try today, and this is all coming along the side of historical volatility percentile on the 4-hour being incredibly low right here, going back into the single digits for the last couple or 2 or 3 consecutive days. And with that in mind, a big move, well, maybe not necessarily a big move, but a nice medium-term move, likely to the top side of the medium-term time frame range, which in this case would be around that 16,350, maybe even all the way up to 16,450, a nice $100 range up there. Very likely does happen, and that would obviously give it a chance to have that further continuation based off the 3-day closure, of which I think I forgot even to talk about the time frame, or sorry, the level that actually needs to clear above on this chart, but it would be 16,350 tonight. So closure must be above there in order to maintain this posturing, but as long as that condition is met, I'm still looking for new highs on this run essentially, and I am more or less Bula-ish, at least for now. Looking at a 3 hour right here, what do we see? Same chart. Basically, we do see 3 hour Stokes popping back up, doing the same activity, snaking a bit around the bearish control zone, but that is typically going to lead for a further test to the upside. In this case, we have the same sort of hidden bullish divergence here, actually already confirmed, not just in progress as we saw in the 4 hour. Credit to Caretaker on that one, and popping back above the exponential here too. What else do we see? We see historical volatility percentile in the same kind of ultimate collapsing phase as well, but that is going to lead up to very likely a move, probably somewhere right around here. As you can see, it just come down in a nice orderly fashion, somewhere around late today, maybe early tomorrow, assuming that this is, oh no, my days are wrong here. Actually, no, that could still work. Yeah, late today, sometime around middle of tomorrow, perhaps. Would be a little more statistically likely, but looking at it right now, I mean, it's pretty fucking low to begin with. It's already in the teens, and that would suggest that we are looking at a move sooner rather than later, essentially. Looking at the 2 hour right here, we're already fully contracted down to 0 reads multiple times, actually expanding from there on the very short-term time frames as it is right now. However, looking at two hour momentum also is right here. We do see 2 hour Stokes popping back up or looking like they want to at least try. So any sort of a closure here or higher by the end of the next hour, not this hour, when 1 hour and 27 minutes and 19 seconds. And yeah, I'd be looking for this one to try a little bit higher. Same thing with 2 hour RSI, looking at all of these things with momentum being governed by volatility in this regard. I would be looking for that expansion phase to very likely test to the upside. And I imagine that the hourly is going to be more or less the same. And yes, what do you know? We actually have all of them on the exact same side. You can obviously visualize a nice little trend line right here. However, well, fair enough, you can, but more importantly, I'd be going off the price action right here, and you can just see very, very easily that on the very low term timeframes, this pivot right around about 16,150-ish region, very likely does get respected, or if you want to be a little more lenient with it, 16.2. Looking at historical volatility percentile, we see very, very similar activity here that we saw in the 2 hour and extremely low. So all of them are essentially playing in concert with each other, as you would expect. Sometimes we don't always get that, and that usually is a signal of indecision and sideways within a range. But in this case right here, I actually think that we are very likely to not just test one side of the, or at least one side of the, of the greater range, but very likely break it as well. So looking at this, Bitcoin very likely does have a chance today. If not today, maybe tomorrow or the next day, but it is a bit of taking time bomb at the same time as well. Remember that, again, this condition must be met as long as, if I'm going to continue to be more short-term and medium-term bullish on this. And I'm happy to be bullish as long as that condition is met. But the second that we start to close 3-day dildos below there, and then by subsequent, on the weekly closures below as well, then I really do start to look for one of those greater pullbacks, maybe to the tune of 30 to 40%, as we spoke about over the weekend's video. I won't go into a full-on deep dive on that today because I think it's just going to take too much time, and I want to keep the week videos kind of more so focused towards just what's more relevant on the day. However, I will start to put, I'll put that video from the weekend in like a more long-term playlist because that can still be referenced, and that's probably going to be relevant, or at least hopefully it'll be relevant, at least for like the next month or two. Anyways, looking at the 12 hour as well, moving into the medium term time frames, what do we see? We do see more or less the same. Actually, we do see, or actually, no, we do not at all. In fact, 12 hour Stokes are coming down. Remember though, they are coming down to test exactly where that trend line is that we've had in since, Jesus Christ, man, it must be, hold on, let's get rid of this one right here. It must be since, early September, getting all of the major lows within this current run. And we're going to be testing around it on the next tick, actually. And as you can see, it has been rising over time, suggesting that essentially momentum has been gaining over time, of which we have, well, you could say that. You could say that coming out of this $10,000 base right here, which is where that first test was. But now that it is so wound up in this very small territory, it's you got to hold your breath every time that it does come back down and test around this region. So while technically speaking, yes, it is there, and it has not been a winning trade to bet against it for more than 2 months now. Usually when you see it get this tight, it typically is getting ready to break. So in that case, maybe Tesla one more time gets a slight more move to the upside and then comes down. But this is really cautionary areas right here. So technically speaking, has not broken, still good, but fair enough, take it as you will. And of course, levels will matter quite a bit here as well, which I should probably denote. And I would even go as far as saying, actually, before I get to that point, let's just finish up with the 12-hour right here. 12-hour Joule actually did give a pretty damn good sell signal over the weekend, but that is the problem with it. It was over the weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if it actually popped back up, tested around the prior high, and then played that signal out. But what I really want to see is on the CMEs right here, of which CMEs have opened for the trading week, and it is all right. So CMEs is getting there. We're going to get that signal this week, extremely likely. Bearish divergence also confirmed on CME 12-hour here as well. 1, 2, 3 drives, by the way, not good. Or actually, do we have 3 drives? No, we just have 2 drives right there. Fair enough. And historical volatility percentile very, very low on a time frame like this as well. And this is the chart that I do put a shit ton of weight on. So while I do have to be bullish based off of my own rules because of what we spoke about earlier in this video, I would be lying if I didn't tell you that I have serious reservations with price action right now. But of course, at the end of the day, this is why I do trade off of levels for the most part. And with that in mind, I am really not willing to get very bearish until Bitcoin breaks below. Let's call it still going to be about 15,450. We could probably be a little bit more aggressive with that, maybe taking 15.6 right here. Jesus, man, dyslexia in the early morning hours is not good for the soul. So it wouldn't even be this horizontal right here at about 15.8, although that one still will obviously be relevant. Got all of our weekend lows, of course, but it's not going to be relevant for like the actual momentous move is the case that I'm constructing right now. It'd be more so this area right here, 15,600-ish region, of which that would obviously be accompanied by a closure below on the 3-day topside trailing band here too. Obviously, those are going to be, one and the same essentially. But for right now, those two conditions would likely be met together. And if that were to happen, I would start to target moves much further south. If Bitcoin actually did break below 15,650, I keep on getting it wrong. Is it 15,650 or is it 15,600 even? It's more like 15,600 even, and I'm gonna get rid of this area right here too because it's just not that relevant. Although it is for the 3-day to be fair, but I think that we can do it more or less on this chart and be a little more aggressive. Of course, it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but in this case, yes, if it did start to break that area, I would ultimately be looking for another move back down, actually all the way down here towards 14.7-ish region, maybe even 14.8, and I'd be looking for another bounce right around that region as well. However, that bounce would really likely get sold into, could it get back up, into the upper $15,000 region? Possibly yes, but over time, it would not look very good. Anyways, as it is right now, those are critical areas as I do see it. Again, 15.6 on a 4-hour delta closure for a little bit more aggressive behavior. But if you want to go by the book, it would be 15.450 right here. And both of those would very, 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 very likely get it. Of course, the more conservative one is going to be, going to hold a little more weight. But at the end of the day, this is all set up for, the following weeks after that. It's not necessarily all going to happen in the course of like one day. This market does take its time, of course, and it needs, realistically, this next portion of the market is just going to be to probably first blow it off and then just absolutely bore the shit out of people, make people feel complacent on the way down, and then bore the shit out of people in a nice sideways consolidation for like, a couple months. Anyways, we covered that in the video yesterday. I don't want to go over it fully in this one because it's going to be redundant and it's also quite long. But it's there for you to view if you so desire. Anyways, let's go back into the medium-term time frames right here and just make sure that we actually did all of it. I believe we did. Yeah, it is very interesting to see that historical volatility percentile on the on spot price action is actually quite different than what we see on CMEs. Same thing with RSI here too. I actually look at this as still more or less okay as long as it holds a bullish control zone. So you can kind of see two ways right here. It's either that Bitcoin has topped out and we are very likely to head back down further south, or we do see one more try to the upside, at least one more try to the upside, I should say. Again, as long as the conditions that we spoke about at the beginning of this video are met. And just hold your breath every time that it has a chance to break below those critical levels. So fair enough. Looking at it right here, I'm not really getting too much else from the 12-hour. Let's go over here to the daily and see what it's saying as well. And we do see daily Stokes still up and at them somehow. Now, of course, they are in that critical zone where we do find quite a few tops in the history of Bitcoin. Now, it certainly has been higher a few times in the past as well, especially in the run from 2016 to 2017 over here. But is again, a cautionary type thing. Now, here's the thing. In traditional markets, when you look at a Stoke signature like this is not bearish at all, actually, in traditional markets. I mean, overall, it's not bearish. Short term, it could be a little bit bearish, but realistically, you look at this and you say, oh, in the bullish control zone, in the critical zone, this is a very strong trend, and I should be pulling it, and I should be buying any pullbacks. And fair enough, that actually would be, or could be actually how it's going to start to transfer into interpreting it in Bitcoin land as well. Before, that wasn't really the case, as it didn't really spend, it didn't really have too many instances of spending like that much time above. But now it's starting to look a little bit more like Bitcoin's maturing, and these indicators are taking on a more traditional interpretation as well, which is cool, actually. It's very cool. We also do have some bearish divergence confirmed here too. Now, I do happen to think that we're probably going to get a third drive, but for right now, that's 2 drives. And to be fair, I mean, could you say that the easy part of that move's already played out? Certainly, yes. I mean, it would have been confirmed right here on the signal at 16,100. We got to move down to 15.7 or 15.8 after that. Not anything too crazy right there, but fair enough. For a very small signal like that, you could very easily say that that's already played out. Anyways, looking at daily Joule right here, it's lined up. It's there. It's in the cards. I'm curious what CME says as well. It's pretty fucking close here too, but. Oh, it makes it so fucking difficult, man. It makes it so fucking difficult. There's so many warning signals going on right now. So many fucking warning signals, but I do have those rules that make me I cannot play the downside until those conditions are met. Now, of course, this is not financial advice, like I've been saying, so teach their own, of course. And in this case right here, I would still stick with what I've been saying. I actually do look at those lower term timeframes. It's likely to pop back up to the upside. We'll actually look at traditional markets soon enough as well, but before that, I want to see the 2-day. Yeah, 2-day still looks like still climbing the wall of worry, if you will. 3-day, yep, still going as well here too. However, we are closing this one tonight, and we're very likely to see 3-day Stokes probably take a downturn off that if I had to guess. However, it's a long day left to go, and it's not wise to call something before about 19 hours and 17 minutes and 3 seconds. But it is certainly within the cards if we fail to get back above that critical pivot on the 3-day right here. Again, that's going to be 16,350 on today's closure. That's the critical number. And oh yes, okay. So now that we've gotten through all that, here's also another reason why I do think that Bitcoin probably pops back up here a little bit. Referencing traditional markets over here, it has opened up on a nice little uptick, back up above $12,000, which is a nice critical number for that one as well. And I'd probably be looking for this one to test a little bit higher intraday here too, somewhere around 12,150-ish region. And it's going to start to make the weekly look pretty damn good as well. So while I would be looking for some short-term upside, I do think that this could very easily translate into long-term upside, and I'd essentially be looking at this as more or less likely to be a continuation to the prior highs, and probably beyond to new all-time highs, as long as this condition is met right here. We have a very easy way to be playing this one. Just looking at last week's low at 11,500, I'm basically still looking at this as bullish as long as it is above that region right there. Even on the lower-term timeframes like a daily, we could use on a closure. It's not too much more aggressive, but 11,650-ish region right here on a daily to closure. But for right now, short term, yes, I would be looking for some upside at the very least to about 12,150, and then I want to come back later today and check it out after that. Extremely short term timeframes right here, like a 4-hour, looks more or less constructive, and yeah, it does look like it doesn't just want to hit 12,1 or 12,150, but maybe even gun for that prior 12,350 high right here. I also think that it's very interesting to be looking at SPY futures as well, which is very obviously bullish. Now, we looked at this one over the weekend and we said, well, NASDAQ wasn't necessarily too obvious, and I was very much hesitant to be making any sort of calls in it. SPY was. And in this case right here, I'd be looking for new all-time highs on SPY. And if we're just being honest here, and if we're just being, reasonable, does that translate into NASDAQ? Very likely. Does NASDAQ and Bitcoin trade together? Yes, they do. I mean, they all pretty much trade together, to be fair. The world markets are pretty much one and the same, mostly because they're all denominated against the same local currency. Now, isn't it weird how that whole thing works? But looking at it right here, yeah, I'd be looking at also daily RSI getting back to the bullish control zone, and more or less, I'm looking for this one to not just retest the prior all-time high from last week, but also make new all-time highs. Maybe not this week, but over the next few weeks. Looks pretty damn good. By the way, speaking of the weekly, did reject getting out of the bullish control zone, so it maintains around here, crossing back up. We do see weekly RSI, of course, as well, incredibly powerful. We do see it back in the bullish control zone, back above the exponential. I mean, this is a very good read right here. So I wouldn't be surprised if SPY doesn't just make new all-time highs, but it continues to make new all-time highs for a little bit more time here. I do think that looking for the ultimate dooms drop, as a lot of people have been looking for in traditional markets, is misguided, at least for now. And I'm curious how this will actually shape up the monthly here as well. Where is the monthly? There we go. Yeah, monthly looks pretty fucking good, huh? Monthly looks pretty damn good. It'd be hard not to be looking for new all-time highs based off this, not just for this month, but also coming into December as well. So I do believe that bodes quite well for Bitcoin, as these assets are pretty fucking correlated on the higher term timeframes. So with that in mind, do I think Bitcoin pulls through here? Probably yes, but I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that I am very, 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 very concerned within this current area. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be right about it. And of course, that's why I do have that rule with the 3-day and the weekly, as we looked at the beginning of this video, that I'm unwilling to change my bias for basically just being bullish, I suppose, until we actually start closing 3 days and weeklies below that topside Challenger band, of which we'll have a chance to do it tonight on the 3-day, to be fair. And realistically, it's 2 consecutive closes below if you want to go super conservative by the book. Now, in this case, I don't think that that's going to be super necessary, but to just kind of overlay a few reasons, or first off, actually, we didn't even talk about this, which is kind of crazy. Jesus Christ, man. But where would the topside target be? Well, of course, just based off of the ascending triangle that we had in from, I believe it was all of early November right here. Yes, indeed it was. We do have a measure move still pointed north towards about 15,800. So that will be a nice little target right there. We also got the 2-spot extension from the fibs coming in right around about, or just below about 17,000 bucks right there as well. So you can make a nice little $200 range between about 16,750 and 16,950. Or did I do that right? No, I didn't do that right. Where's my damn boxes? There we go. There's my blue boxes of peace and prosperities, or maybe death and destruction. Who knows on this one? So that'd be a nice little algo target right there as well. And I would be looking for, at the very least, a short-term pullback based upon this region. Could it also be the potential top of this run? Yes, but I wouldn't necessarily, call it in that fashion. I want to see an actual reversal being put in progress, rather than just like, oh, this, we hit our target, so we must come down now. No, that's just not the way that it works. And of course, market side dynamics, in a way that's just very unwise to be doing. I've seen a lot of careers end that way, like trying to guess tops or trying to guess bottoms. I've seen a lot more people. Here's a really weird thing. I've seen a lot more people go broke trying to sell tops and go short on tops and trying to buy ultimate lows than I have seen do basically anything else. It's kind of weird. It's not that weird. It actually makes quite a bit of sense. Just look at the fucking Cardano chart, but it is very much true. It is very much true. And I'm sure that a lot of people out there probably have similar experiences as well. Anyways, looking at this, yes, I would have a very intentful eye on this region right here. Of course, that's also going to be looking at, that's supposed to be coming in around, I believe, the daily topside Challenger band. Yes, indeed it is. Actually a little bit higher than that, just over 17,000 bucks, but still within that range. And I imagine the 12 hours right around that region as well. Actually a little bit lower than that, but 12 hour actually looks like it wants to expand here. It's had a nice little sideways consolidation. It's hard not to be bullish on this, at least for a nice short-term move. Fair enough. So there we go. Anyways, going back into it over here, we did have a few points of confluence. Obviously, that is also going to be superseded by what we see over the macro scale. If we were to pull this all the way out and we were to take a nice fib retracement from the ultimate high to the ultimate low of the past cycle, so a 3,100 low and a $20,000 high about, that's going to show let me make sure that I actually get this proper. Yeah, there we go. That's actually going to show the 236 around that region as well, a little bit lower actually, but again, they're all within this region, multiple things. So confluence typically is a good thing in the game of trading, and in this case right here, it would mean that yes, I'm going to be extremely cautious within this region, but I'm happy to be bullish again as long as those prior conditions are met. But how much more upside can we fit within here without starting to like really drastically make things feel a little bit crazy? Well, I don't know. I mean, this run has already been about a $6,000 run without any real meaningful pullback. I mean, it's been basically straight up since 10,000 right here, and that is, yeah, that quite literally is a 62% run, $6,300 from that date. I mean, that's just, I mean, we got to be reasonable at some point now, don't we? And of course, it's not only just all of those areas that we just spoke about, but it's also the bull trap that we saw in January 2018 as well. I mean, that's the first time that Bitcoin put in a lower high on the weekly, and anytime that Bitcoin's seen a weekly reversal, whether it be to the upside or the downside, those have been those have been the beginning and ends of all market cycles in Bitcoin's history to date, actually, which is which is pretty fucking impressive for the last 10 years. It can quite literally be that simple. But yes, it's coming in right around that $17,000 region as well, and of course, it's going to be relevant because, well, not only was it your first lower high and reversal of 2018 run, but it was also the lead up into the next 65% move to the downside over the next few weeks. So all those things working together with each other does make me quite cautious within this region. It makes me, yes, I can be a little more short-term bullish here, but it's time to, it's time to be a bit more reasonable, I do think. So while Bitcoin's been having a fun time, I do want to really highlight those regions, not because I'm guaranteed to be right about that or anything like that. No, obviously not. As I always say, in a bull market, a dumb bull is going to make more money than a fucking trader who's been doing this professionally for over a decade. I mean, it quite literally is that simple. I will tell you straight up, fucking up, that in 2017, all the degenerate gamblers, they probably made a lot more money than me. And at that time, I'd been trading for, I don't know, probably like 7 or 8 years. And I was having a good time, don't get me wrong, but the people who were just buying the whole fucking thing the whole way up on leverage, of course, as well, all the way up to 100x, which is even more crazy. Those people they certainly made more money than me, because I was taking I was taking positions off on all these areas right here. So it wasn't necessarily perfect, but still worked. The problem is, though, is that once this happens over here and the market cycle changes around, well, buying the dip doesn't necessarily work all that well for the next 3 years now, does it? So fair enough, and again, of course, to each their own, but I'm always coming from the perspective as more or less a more short-term time frame trader, rather than looking to hold something, this asset for like years on end. Just not really what I've trained to do. Anyways, okay, so we looked at traditional markets, we looked at Bitcoin. What else do we want to look at? We could do a quick round on Link. Did Link close the weekly above its critical level? It did. I'd be looking for it to follow through as well. Maybe it does have another test down to $10.50 in the interim, but overall, I'd be bullish on this one. I do look at this as still likely to test back up, not just $15, but probably $16 over time. Not going to be happening like this week or anything like that, though. I should denote that. But over the next couple months, yeah, it does still look okay here, but probably does play out a little bit of short-term downside as well. Problem is, though, is that if Bitcoin does start to head back down, I would look for basically everything in its mother to head back down with it. So fair enough. But yes, I still do think that, 2-day and 3-day are a bit toppy here. To be fair, there are a few toppy things here, but I'd imagine that if Bitcoin does move up here, it's very likely to fall. So what we could do is we could use the last week spinning top dildo right here to kind of denote continuation or potential reversal in progress as well. Below the low side of it at 1137, then I would be looking for, at the very least, test back down another buck lower to 10.5. Could it have a reversal right there? Potentially yes, but I'd want to see it in real time. By the same token, the very obvious one would be taking out last week's high at $13 and 86 cents, and I'd be looking for moves all the way up to, like I said, 15 and a quarter, and then 16 and a half. Over time again. Anyways, moving on. What do we got with Mr. Buterin, actually? Where are you, sir? Where are you? There you are. Still holding 450. Interesting. Actually, a very unfortunate close for it. Could have been so easy here, but it's not going to be, actually. If this is making me a little bit more reserved on what I'm looking at on Bitcoin. Because both Link and Buterin look actually bearish short term. Let's go down to a very low term time frame right here. Could have put in a low right here. Yeah, but I mean that's last stop right there. 440 must hold 440. Otherwise, I would be looking for moves all the way back down towards at the very least 420, maybe even 410. about 420. 420 is what we'll be looking towards. Good number as well, but with historical volatility percentile looking like it's expanding from quite a low level right now, as it does start to topple on over. I'm not so sure how much I like that one. See what the monthly looks like here too. Then I look at the monthly. Monthly's still good. So long term, I'd still have to give it the nod to the upside. But I do have to say that the weekly is a little bit. It could have made it so easy here. It could have made it so fucking easy. But I suppose as long as it does remain above that pivot again, at the very least on the 4 hour above 440. If we're looking at this on a daily, we'll be speaking towards a greater trend here. 415 to 420 as well. Actually, I suppose I still have to be a little bit bullish on this one too, looking for about 500, maybe even 500 plus. Likely going to play along with Bitcoin, and I should also denote that on HVP over here, we do see it coming from single-digit reads once again, 1 and a 2 read, 2 consecutive weeks in a row. So with that in mind, we are going to be looking at a pretty explosive move from this region. So I would pay particular attention with that, because if it does break to the downside, I mean, this one can come back down below $300 quite easily once again. And if it does break to the upside, this one can explode to not just $530, but over time, over the course of a few months, $750 and $800 would not be out of the question at all, especially coming from a read like this. I mean, the last time that we saw a read like this was coming out of April 2018, which after that we did see about a 188% move to the upside, to be fair. So there you go. To put that in context, I mean, that would be actually around $1,000, I'd imagine, from where we are right now. Actually, probably more than that. Fair enough. Doing some very bad mental math in the early morning, but Jesus Christ, man, I am like really fucking tired today. But I think I've got most of what I want to say out. Let's go over here and check out Caretaker's new kicks, new do. What is that saying? I don't know. But looking at it right here, would show the ranges on an hourly, no less, at 15.8 to the downside, which is still pretty much synonymous with our current low structure, and 16.150 to the upside, which is currently synonymous with the highs on our current low term time frame structure as well. I'd essentially agree with that. Don't have anything to really make out of that, but I would say that a bounce would be more or less expected at about 15, a little bit lower than 15.8 region right here. Obviously, this will change as we get more and more closures, so it's not going to be relevant for more than a few hours today. But same thing to the upside here as well, at least for a short-term time frame trade. I'm curious what the 4 hour would say as well. Yeah, 4 hour essentially gets the prior high, so I do like that area here too, 16,450-ish region, and it would kind of be your natural target, I suppose, if Bitcoin does want to test to the upside here. Same thing to the downside as well, showing that 15,650-ish region. So we do see the confluences there. Anyways, I think it's time to go back on over here, and it's time to wrap this bitch up. You hear that? It's time to wrap this bitch up, Elsa. All right, great. Looking at it right now, I would be looking for Bitcoin to probably give another pop to the upside, just based off of low-term time frame momentum oscillators. We got 4 hour, there's 2 hour, there's 3 hour, and then there's hourly, all on the same side right now, pointing a little bit northwards, and likely does tag at least 16 to maybe gets continuation back up to 16,350-ish region. That's only relevant for the short term though. And also, of course, I do think that it is relevant to say that both NASDAQ and SPY futures are looking quite bullish here, and looking at the correlation between all these major assets, bullish on traditional markets, kind of have to be bullish on Bitcoin as well. However, what I would say is a bit cautious, or at least something to really be paying attention towards today, is going to be the 3-day dildo closure. And as long as it is closing above the topside Trailing band, of which we've been closing above the topside Trailing band ever since 12,300 was broken right here, the trend has been in motion, and trend has been your friend and has led you up another $3,000 the upside. Quite nice. Very, 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 very generous of Bitcoin to do. And currently speaking, we are going to be closing a 3-day dildo tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time. And if it does close above the topside Trailing band here at 16,350, we'll call it, then I would be looking for essentially new highs on this run, and still those targets up towards 16.7 to 16.9 are very much viable based off the mesh move right here, based off the fib extensions right here, based off the fib retracements from the old time over here, and several more points of confluence, of which I don't want to get into right now. But realistically, I would still be looking at that region. I'd also still be looking at it as an area of extreme caution as well. So fair enough. By the same token, we should also talk about downside displeasures here too. Short-term warning signal is still below 15.8. Nothing's changed there from over the weekend. However, that doesn't really speak towards the long-term timeframes at all. The long-term timeframes will be decided below about 16, or sorry, Jesus Christ, keep on saying it, 15.6. well, super long is going to be 14.7 right here. That's going to be the big bad one, of course. But one thing before the next. Could we actually be? Should I be a little more conservative with this? I do think that it might actually be more relevant the more time. The more time that I do spend looking at this. I just want to check out the 3-day here as well. What was our last? Or sorry, not the 3-day, but the weekly. What was our last open? Yeah, 15.5. So it is a little bit lower than 15.6, which is what I'm postulating right now. I'd rather use 15.5 right here. As long as we're above 15.5, especially on those medium and higher term time frame closures, I really have no reason to be bearish on this and looking for like a real reversal. Those would be my points of reference right now. Again, 15,500. Below there, I start to look for moves back down to 14.7. So that's a pretty damn big move, almost $1,000 with likely a bounce implied. And realistically, I'd probably be looking for that bounce to get sold into. But for right now, short term, I am still bullish. Still looking for short term somewhere around maybe like 16.3 or 16.350, and then I extend that over time as long as the 3-day criteria is met, which is going to be closing tonight. And then I'd put caution on this region right here, of which I would also say, as long as the 3 days closing above that topside Bollinger Band, I'm still looking for more, extremely cautiously though. So with that in mind, I do want to wish you the best of the best and the happiest once again. Take care, and until next time.